Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome today to another video. This is second video I'm done today or doing today, and will be the final video I'm doing today. So, do bear with me now. And today is the F1 2019 predictions. I said the video will come out in between today and the 31st of January. I've decided to do it now after my last video. So we're going to start, obviously, with the Drivers' Championship. And yeah, we're going to start with basically the Drivers' Championship and who I think will become World Champion. And yes, at the start of last year, we're going to start with top two, obviously. And I believe the driver that will win the 2019 Formula One's World Championship will be Sebastian Vettel. That's in there, as you can see, in 2018 Co-Masters game. And the reason why I've picked Vettel is because the last two seasons he's actually been quite strong. And what we've got to remember, he's only had realistically one season where he could have won the championship, I would say, in all honesty, and that was 2018. And he had a similar season in 2009. He could have won the championship back in 2009, but he didn't. And it was his only season where actually he probably could have won the championship, but didn't as well. And yeah, obviously, that's why I've put him to be first. Plus, after what's happened in the last two seasons, he will have more hunger than ever to win his fifth world title. I honestly believe that, because at the end of the day, he's lost the championship now 2 seasons in a row. I'm not trying to make any excuses for Vettel. I'm just thinking, this will be surely his first season where he'll have more hunger than ever to win a Formula One championship. And I just think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in 2019. So in second, I've selected, Lewis Hamilton. And yes, that's right. Lewis Hamilton I've put in second because I think Lewis Hamilton will have still a very good season. I do think he'll still win races this season, but I just don't think he'll have as good of a season as maybe last season. And I think he won't be able to win a 6th World Championship. It's not impossible. I don't think it's out of the rails of possibilities. But I do think he will not be able to convert this year into a 6th Formula One Championship. I don't know why I believe that. I just think he's had his time now. His time's up. Maybe not in Formula One, but at the top of the Formula One tree. And no driver has gone beyond, and no team has gone beyond winning 5 consecutive world championships. And with Lewis Hamilton, he had a sort of period like this. I can remember in 2014 and 2015, he dominated them 2 seasons. But 2016, he fell just right off the cliff. And I think that will happen again this season. He'll fall right off the cliff. And unfortunately will not have a season to remember. Now, the next 2 drivers go sort of hand in hand in some way in terms of their position. Valtteri Bottas, I think, will finish 3rd. And in 4th, I think it will be Charles Leclerc. And the reason why I say that, Charles Leclerc has obviously, as we know, been promoted to Ferrari. But Valtteri Bottas has had experience at the top now for 2 seasons, effectively. 2017, he came in replacement of Nico Rosberg, who retired following his only championship. And yeah, Bottas has filled them shoes. Last season, he had a poor season, but we got to remember, some of it was unluckiness, I will say there. But in a way, I would actually class he did win one race. And the race that he won was Russia. It will never go down as an official race win, but I think unofficially he did win that race. In all honesty, so when you compare Valtteri Bottas' season to maybe 2017, yes, it was worse, but actually, you know, a lot of things could have gone right for Valtteri Bottas last season. In fact, right, you had China. China's one. Baku's another. You know, I'm not going to include Bahrain and Australia because they're two completely different ones. But yeah, you had China, Baku in Azerbaijan. You know, we had that. I think, you know, what happened in Austria could have been a chance also for Valtteri. Also, there was other circuits. I think there are some circuits that actually Valtteri Bottas did do well at last season that we forget. It's just the results, you know, that kept on coming bad, and bad. Because, right, who could have predicted that debris in Baku would have been there? Who could have predicted the safety car? You know, all these tiny little details go hand in hand. And did cost Valtteri Bottas undoubtedly maybe 3 race wins. I remember in 2016, a similar thing happened to Vettel. You know, Australia. Ferrari made a huge error. Canada. Spain even. And there were other circuits on that 2016 calendar that actually cost Vettel and Ferrari a decent go at winning races and maybe a championship. But yeah, so I just think Bottas will edge out 3rd place. But that's based on 2 things. One, I think, once again, Lewis Hamilton will be the number 1, like always. And 2, I just don't think Valtteri will be able to ever put together a championship winning season. He doesn't seem that type of guy, unfortunately. I know that's sad to say, but I just think Valtteri Bottas will have his 3rd season in Mercedes, and it will be his final season at Mercedes, Valtteri Bottas. And yeah, it's very, very sad to say like that. Like, I honestly think, you know, Valtteri Bottas will have his final season in Formula 1. Potentially, if he doesn't have a final season in Formula 1, where would he go for Valtteri? I would say maybe back to Williams in replacement of Robert Kubica, maybe. But even then, why would you do that? It doesn't make logical sense for Williams. So, yeah, you know. Right, in 4th place, I believe it will be Charles Leclerc. And the reason why I say Charles Leclerc will finish 4th, I just don't think in his 1st season with Scuderia Ferrari, he will be able to put together a championship bid, let alone be able to how can you put it? I don't think he'll be able to put a championship bid together. I think he may win a race this year, but that championship bid for me is too much to ask of Leclerc in his 1st season at Ferrari. We've got to remember, this is Ferrari. He used to race for Alfa Romeo. We've got to remember, Charles Leclerc, what age is he? Let me just have a look on this. I'm pretty sure like he's 20 or something. He's ridiculously young. He'll be the youngest person to race for Ferrari as well, to bear in mind. He's a very, very young driver. He is 21, sorry. So yeah, Charles Leclerc is 21 years old. You know, my brother is 21 years old. So for Charles Leclerc to put a championship bid at Ferrari at such a young age, I just think it's impossible. Now I'm going to read out some comments, so, you know, because I've done the top 4 now. Magma Tube, thank you for liking the video. Thank you. Please subscribe if you're already subscribed. Thank you very much. Fernando is the greatest driver of all time. Well, in my eyes, Fernando is certainly a good driver. Greatest driver? I'm going to have to say no to that one. Because, see, the thing is, okay, right, Fernando was certainly a very, very talented driver. I don't doubt his talent. But the thing is, Fernando fell out with McLaren. He fell out with Ferrari. He fell out with Renault. And also fell out with Red Bull in some sense. And even Toto Wolff said he would never have Fernando in his car alongside a top driver because wherever Fernando goes, he causes controversial moments. I don't know whether he does it on purpose. I don't know whether he does it by mistake. I don't know. He's certainly a very, very quick driver because what he's achieved at McLaren in 4 years of now virtually no success was phenomenal, pulling out some mega results. But could Vettel do that? Could Hamilton do that? I honestly think these drivers could do that. I would certainly put him up there in terms of with Vettel and Hamilton in terms of pace-wise. But in terms of his relationship with a Formula One team, I think he just doesn't manage that well. And yeah, that's why I'd have to, put him up there with the likes of, that's why I'd have to put him up there with them drivers. But at the same time, I would not put him up there with Senna. I would not put him up there with Vettel. I would say if I had to rank Alonso in terms of the greatest list sort of thing, my top three would have to be Schumacher, Vettel, Hamilton. Even though I would say Hamilton and Vettel are level on paper, if that makes sense. Even though Hamilton has more wins now and more championships and more poles, but we've got to remember Hamilton's done this all at a later stage in his career, whereas Vettel was able to get going straight away in his career, more or less. And Vettel is still the youngest world champion, youngest double champion. He was the youngest race winner, and he's still the youngest pole sitter in Formula One. So for me, that's something he's achieved very, very well. And also one other thing, from the Belgium Grand Prix all the way to, I think it was Abu Dhabi, he won 9 consecutive race wins in a row. Not even Lewis Hamilton's done that. He hasn't come close, Lewis Hamilton. Not even Rosberg was able to achieve that. No one's achieved that in the history of Formula One except Sebastian Vettel. And for me, that's an amazing achievement. And also, Lewis Hamilton hasn't even achieved, realistically, some of the things that Vettel's achieved. Vettel's achieved more race wins in a single season than Hamilton. Vettel's achieved more pole positions in a single season than Hamilton. So for me, that is something you have to remember what Vettel's achieved throughout his career. So in terms of during the course of a season, yeah, Vettel's had actually better seasons than Hamilton put together in many seasons. 2011, 2013 were phenomenal seasons for Vettel. And he's also gone on to achieve more. And remember, 2013 and 2011 are Vettel's standout seasons for me. But there are also some races in 2012 that stood out for me. For instance, Brazil 2012, phenomenal comeback drive from Vettel. 2012 Abu Dhabi, once another phenomenal. He started from the pit lane and got onto the podium. In 2012, he took out at the 4th corner, had damage, but drove like a madman to win the World Championship. I've never seen anything like it myself. And even 2013, one of his standout drives in that season, I think, was Malaysia 2013. He went wheel to wheel with Webber and showed why he was the king of Formula One at that time. And he still is. He's actually pulled off better overtakes on Hamilton than Hamilton has pulled off on Vettel. So for me, yeah, I appreciate your opinion. I don't doubt whether I don't doubt Fernando's ability, but is he the greatest driver? Probably not. Right. Anyway, on with now the top 5, or the next 4. Okay. So in 5th place, I have put Daniel Ricciardo, and I honestly think this because based on Renault's season last year, obviously that's him in the Red Bull outfit right now, but based on Ricciardo's last year in Red Bull, he didn't have a bad season, in all honesty. Yeah, the championship, he was like half the points or 100 points less than Verstappen, his teammate, or former teammate now. But the thing about Ricciardo, he actually won 2 races. China was certainly a surprise victory. And that race he showed why he was probably actually a better driver than Verstappen at the moment. And same in Monaco, he put it on pole, he won the race. And a car that had 75%, 75% less power, 25% less power than Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari. And did a phenomenal job, actually, around the streets of Monaco. Okay, that's probably the best circuit you can have that issue on, engine issue, but at the same time, you don't want any issue on any circuit because, yeah, you have to drive in a different way, you have to drive in a technique. And actually, coming to say that's the best circuit, in fact, it's actually probably not. In terms of, yeah, for sure, for engine issue, maybe a little bit, but the issue he was having was also a deployment issue, so he had to drive his driving technique. And around the streets of Monaco, we've got to remember them barriers. One mistake and game over. Vettel, you're the race winner. And yeah, he did a phenomenal job. So yeah, he just had a lot of retirements that were a Renault-related issue, so they say. In some ways, I feel maybe Red Bull. I don't want to accuse Red Bull of a conspiracy, but at the same time, I do get the feeling when the move was announced, the treatment of Ricciardo just became non-existent at Red Bull, and Max Verstappen became immediately the number 1 driver, and Ricciardo became like a halfway house between racing for them, scoring some points, and not been there. You know, it was a very awkward. It looked awkward from the outside, should I say. But yeah, I think Ricciardo will do a good job for Renault next season. I think there's reasons why I put him in 5th place. One, for he's got experience. And I just think Renault, it's 3rd season now in Formula 1. They've had 2016, 2017, 2018. So yeah, 4th season now for Renault. Last season they improved. Every season so far, Renault's improved. In fact, if you look at that trajectory, a bit like Mercedes, okay, if you look at the trajectory, in fact, by 2021, when the regulation changes, in fact, you could actually see, basically, Ricciardo actually have done the right move. You could actually see maybe that Renault team, maybe a race-winning team, maybe a championship-winning team. Who knows? But yeah. So yeah, next, in 6th, I've said Nico Hülkenberg. And yeah, Nico Hülkenberg, I've rated him 6th place because I just think Nico Hülkenberg has, how can you put it? He's a good driver, solid driver. I think he will certainly pull out results once again for Renault. I have no doubt about that. But I just don't think he'll be able to match the likes of Ricciardo. I've just got that feeling. But then, you know what? I could be surprised. We don't know. I think, in a way, this will be the first test for Hülkenberg in his Formula 1 career, in some sense. Because if we actually think of it, Ricciardo did match Vettel in 2014. In fact, he beat Vettel. Vettel had a poor season that year. But, yeah, I just think Ricciardo will be the first real test for Hulkenberg. And based on that opinion or assumption, I have to say I have to give it 1-0 Ricciardo. 2020 could be a different story. I think Hulkenberg will up his game in 2020. But, 2019, I just think Ricciardo will have the better of Hulkenberg. Ricciardo's been with Verstappen, and Verstappen and Ricciardo were nip and tuck. So I have to say, based on that, Hulkenberg will have the best of Ricciardo. Ricciardo will have the best of Hulkenberg in 2019. But it's a bit like, this reminds me of a situation, Nico Rosberg and Hamilton. Hamilton came into that Mercedes team to a reasonably young Nico Rosberg at the time, who had numerous seasons based on drivers that actually were slower than 100% than him. 2010, he was based with Schumacher mainly, if you remember rightly, until the end of 2012, going into 2013. And realistically, we can all... Yes, okay, Schumacher's a 7-time champion, probably the greatest driver of all time, undoubtedly. But Nico Rosberg, because he was younger, probably fitter as well, if that makes sense, and probably had a lot more quicker reaction time, he had no real challenge from Schumacher. And then when Hamilton arrived, all of a sudden, he had a challenge, because obviously they were so evenly matched, despite Hamilton having more success during his time at Mercedes. Right, in 7th, I've said Romain Grosjean. And yeah, Romain Grosjean is in 7th place. And yeah, I've put Romain Grosjean once again for numerous reasons. Firstly, I think he'll want to bounce back, because in a way, last season, I actually thought, in 2017, he had a very, very good season. And I actually thought, you know what? If there's a favourite to replace Kimi Räikkönen, it has to be Romain Grosjean. And, in a way, he blew it. He actually, I would say, blew his opportunity to replace Kimi Räikkönen at Ferrari. But this is what I honestly believe. He had a good opportunity. He was in the Haas car. But now he probably has blown that opportunity with Ferrari, and that was probably his final opportunity, bear in mind. So I would actually have to say, based on that, he will want to bounce back from that, and from last season's poor start. He'll want to start this season on a high, keep it going, keep it all the way to the end. And yeah, he'll probably most likely want to now work with this Haas team properly and build a success out of them. And yeah, I think he will have a good season. It's his fourth season now with the Haas Formula 1 team. And it's Haas' fourth Formula 1 season in Formula 1. I just think, it'll be interesting to see what he can do. Grosjean's still young. What age is he, Grosjean? Let's have a quick look for this. I'm pretty sure he's in his late now 20s, maybe 30s. Grosjean. So Romain Grosjean, age, let's have a look. He's 32. So yeah, he's still got time. Will he win a world championship? Probably not. I think that's a safe assumption to make. But can he bring this Haas team, build it into a success story? Who knows? Right, next, in 8th position, I've said Carlos Sainz. And yes, Sainz. And I think Sainz, based on McLaren, I don't think he'll do a better job than what Alonso did, but I think McLaren will improve. And this goes back to my Alonso opinion early that I gave to, what was the person's name? This goes back to my opinion. Is Fernando Alonso the greatest driver of all time? And many would probably say yes. because maybe they like him. But if actually from an outsider's point of view, let's have a look from an outsider's point of view. He's only won 2 championships. Yes, he's driven some of the fastest cars. He's driven a Ferrari. He's driven he's driven fast Renaults. But at the same time, he has done some miracles out of cars that maybe shouldn't have been. The 2012 Ferrari, for instance. A lot of people say it was a dog, more or less, to handle. And yeah, maybe it was. But also the McLaren era, he hasn't. But at the same time, there are things that I just think that were not necessary from Fernando. Like, for instance, his comments about the car. Okay, yes, he does need to give feedback. Honest feedback is sometimes good. But eventually, you sometimes felt his comments became, how can you put it, a bit of annoying, a bit rude, a bit obnoxious. And think, if you're working in a team or in a CAF, let's say your manager is constantly telling you you're doing a SHIT job, Honda, like for instance, GP2 engine, that was an unnecessary comment. I've never driven with less power than this in my life, that was an unnecessary comment. You know, some comments were just unnecessary from Fernando and did not help the Honda situation at McLaren. And I just think it wouldn't have even helped McLaren's, mood. I'm going to answer a call quickly, so I'll be back in 2 seconds. Right, sorry about that. Just a quick phone call had to take. So yeah. Anyway, where was I? Back to. I think I was going on about Roman Grosjean. Yeah, I just think Roman Grosjean will have a comeback season. Oh no, sorry, I was going on about Carlos Sainz. In fact, or was I? Yeah, Sainz. Yeah. So yeah, in 8th place or 9th place. Let me just have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In 8th place, I've put Carlos Sainz. And that's because I honestly think Carlos Sainz will be a breath of fresh air for McLaren after so many years of negativity. He used to be with Renault on a Red Bull deal, if that makes sense, under Red Bull contract. But obviously, that Red Bull contract ended in September. He continued racing for Renault up till the end of that relationship in November, because he was sort of on loan at Renault, if that makes sense, from Red Bull. Red Bull decided they didn't want to renew the contract, and Renault did the exact same. So yeah, basically, yeah, Carlos Sainz, McLaren, I think he'll have a good season at McLaren. I think he'll enjoy McLaren, in fact. Will he have success there? I don't know. Will he be a race winner there? I don't know. Will he be world champion there? I have no idea. At right now, I would have to say no, based on McLaren, not on Sainz. But at the same time, do I think Sainz can become a world champion? I have no idea. I think, with me, it feels like Sainz is turning into a nearly driver. A bit like Roman Grosjean. And in a way, it's sad, because I actually like Sainz a lot. Don't get me wrong, if I had to choose out of him and Vettel, I would say Vettel any day, because Vettel is my favourite driver. I am a Ferrari fan. I am a Vettel fan. I've always supported Vettel since his early days. But because Sainz I also like, I wouldn't mind if he won the championship next year. I really, really wouldn't. I think he deserves it. Whereas with Hamilton, I've got a bit more of a grudge, if that makes sense. I appreciate and respect his results, and I think he's a fantastic driver. And I love that battle between Vettel and Hamilton, going wheel to wheel. In fact, I don't think we get enough wheel to wheel action between Vettel and Hamilton. But the thing is, I always disappointed when I see Hamilton, the race winner, or win the championship. Because, obviously, I want someone else but Hamilton to win the championship. I guess it's the same for Hamilton fans. Hamilton fans would say, oh, Vettel's the villain. But to me, Hamilton's the villain. You see? Vettel's the hero, Hamilton's the villain. For them, Vettel's the villain, Hamilton's the hero, if you get what I mean. And basically everyone else is not innocent, but everyone else is, how can you put it? Not necessarily innocent, but they're not innocent, but they are the other. They are just helpers. They're like Santa's little helpers, if that makes sense. So for instance, I can give you a picture. So Red Bull, because Red Bull were Vettel's first team, you expect them to help Vettel if there was a championship scenario. And they do, technically. They sort of give Vettel a supply package, in some sense. They've actually got an agreement with Vettel, of what I'm aware. So if Vettel basically ever needs assistance and Vettel's ever winning, Vettel will not, they will not really fight Vettel. But if I don't know about Mercedes, what agreement, but Force India, they've got agreement with Mercedes to supply Mercedes and help Mercedes out in some ways. Same with Williams, they've got agreement with Mercedes. Renault, they've sort of got agreement with nobody. Toro Rosso, they've got agreement with Ferrari, but obviously they don't ever get in the way. Same with Haas, agreement with Ferrari. McLaren, they've got agreement with nobody. Alfa Romeo, agreement with Ferrari. Now, the agreement doesn't mean they can take one another out. What it just means, they might try and help through racing the Mercedes, sort of thing, in that sense, if it becomes logical. But, yeah, That's all it is. I just think Sainz will do a good job in McLaren. I don't know where he'll finish in the end, but who knows. Anyway, next up is Pierre Gasly. Now, Pierre Gasly, I've put him in 9th ahead of Verstappen. Now, I think this is going to be really, really close. Now, the reason why I put him in 9th ahead of Verstappen ain't because he's the quicker driver, no. It's because he's had a relationship already with Honda and he knows how Honda works. Okay? And I think he will know how to drive that Honda better than what? Basically than Verstappen. And I think that is actually a crucial key piece of info. If I, let's say, got in your car tomorrow, okay, for instance, here's a scenario. I drove your car, or you drove a friend's car. You'd be used to your own car, but you won't be used to another car. Whereas with Gasly, all he's got to get used to is maybe the Red Bull steering wheel, the Red Bull chassis. Easy, piece of cake. Whereas Verstappen has to get used to now a new engine. And in a way, getting used to a new engine, it's like getting used to a new car, if that makes sense. You have to learn how that engine drives. And that, for me, is key. Because Gasly already knows how that Honda drives. Whereas the Renault, not really. Verstappen, it's the other way round. He knows how the Renault drives despite the lack of reliability. But he doesn't know how the Honda will drive, if that makes sense. So I think Gasly will have the early advantage. And I think that will be key for Gasly. For Verstappen, I think he will have a good comeback at Gasly in the second part, but I don't think it'll be enough to realistically overhaul Gasly. Right, next, Verstappen. And yes, this is what I'm saying. Verstappen will have a very, very good comeback, but first part of the season will be horrible. And that's due to the fact that Gasly will have better knowledge of that Honda-powered engine. Right now, or last year, and since basically, since the days of Verstappen, he's only known how to drive a Renault-powered car. But I think next year he will learn how to, or have to learn how to drive a Honda-powered car. And I know he's going to be at the same team. That's one advantage to Verstappen. But he's still going to have to learn how the Honda will drive. Because, I remember Alonso. Alonso even struggled to drive the Honda-powered engine. And that was due to the drivetrain. It just kept on spinning, apparently, or something. And it made the car very unstable at the rear. And yeah, basically, I just think he's going to have to learn, Verstappen, how to drive a Honda-powered car. Right, next, Lando Norris. And yeah, I think any other drivers, from now on, you could say I'm wrong or right, okay? I've put Lando Norris in 11th. And the reason why I've done that is because, A, he's got McLaren, and I do think McLaren will be quicker than Red Bull next season. But I just think Norris, he did well in most junior formulas. I don't think we should doubt his ability to be able to drive a Formula 1 car. Yeah, I just think he'll do a decent job next season. I don't think he'll be his more senior teammate, Carlos Sainz. But I don't think he'll be too far off either. I don't think the gap will be the same as it was between him, Alonso and Van Dorn. But I think, yeah, we can look forward to Norris being at that team next year with McLaren. I think we've got a lot to look forward to. I like Norris. He seems like a good lad. So yeah. So I will have to say Lando Norris will finish in P11 next year. In P12, Kevin Magnussen. And yeah, Kevin Magnussen last season had a phenomenal season. Best of his career, I have no doubt about that. And yeah, what a job he did. Well played to Kevin Magnussen. Now, I have no doubt about his quality, his ability. But, here's the big but. I think Grosjean will have too good of a season, a bit like how, I think it'll be a role reversal year. I just don't think Magnussen will have such a great year compared to maybe what Grosjean will have. I don't think the gap will be as big, but I think the gap between him and Grosjean will be, still significant. I think, though, it would be the other way around this season, a bit like a pole reverse. If I imagine that, imagine if you flipped a coin on its side. I just think that's all that's going to happen at Haas next year. I still think he'll perform at some tracks very, very good, but I don't think we're going to see a phenomenal season from Kevin Magnussen. And yeah, I just think he will finish in P12. Respectable, nothing wrong with finishing P12, but I just don't think it will be the greatest season for Kevin Magnussen. But it will help certainly towards Haas finishing position. Right, next is Sergio Perez. And yeah, Racing Point technically next year. No longer Force India. We'll have to wait to see whether there'll still be the Pink Panthers, if you know what I mean. That will be certainly an interesting one. Personally, I think, Sergio's been a great driver. However, I just feel like he's hanging on to something that he hasn't got. He ain't gonna win a Formula One championship. That's sad to say. I don't think he's done anything special in his career. He's had 7 seasons now at Haas. In Formula One, or 7 or 8 seasons. And yeah, maybe first few seasons, but I just think he hasn't really had any opportunities elsewhere. Like, it felt like he's been with this team now for 5 years. 5 years. And he's still not any better. He's still not any more successful. So, for me, where does he go? Romain Grosjean has had multiple teams. I honestly believe if a driver stays in one team for too long, they become irrelevant. And I think that's what's happening. Like, Hamilton's been in the same Formula 1 team for 5 years as well. McLaren and now Mercedes. But the point is, 5 years now. What age is Perez? I'm pretty sure he's in his 30s. Let's have a quick look. Perez. So, in my eyes, Perez is, I have to look it up. So, Sergio Perez. What age is he? He's 28. Yeah. Still quite young, I guess. But, yeah, time's getting on for him, in my opinion. And, personally, I think the top teams don't want him, in all honesty. I don't think Mercedes want him. I don't think Red Bull want him. I don't think McLaren want him. And I don't think Ferrari want him. It's sad to say, but, yeah, I don't think he's got much in Formula 1 remaining. He's just hanging on to what he's got, really. And that's Force India. Sorry to say. I don't doubt Force India. I'm just doubting him, in all honesty. And I don't think in the next 2 seasons... Right, next 2 seasons, Force India, let's say they have a fairly okay seasons. Yeah. 2021 is next, maybe big opportunity. He's 31 then. Same age as Vettel. Vettel will be 34 or something around that age. So yeah, based on that, then that's if they're in a championship winning. So maybe you could have one championship successful season, but then there's young guys also. There's lots of factors, I think. And I think Perez, he's the same generation in my eyes as Grosjean, Vettel, Hamilton, and yeah. And basically, in my eyes, he's had his chance. Game's up now. Right. Kimi Raikkonen is next. And I believe he will finish in P13. Yeah. P14, sorry. So yeah, not bad. I personally think this because I think Kimi Raikkonen is a very, very quick driver. Actually, I don't think he's too bad. I think he'll certainly give some of the younger guys a run for their money. But I just don't think he's gonna, obviously, been in a slower car, of course. I just don't think he'll be able to finish inside that top 10. It'd be a bit sad to see him that far down the grid, considering the last few years. He's actually been quite reasonable. This year he finished third in the championship, in all honesty, behind Sebastian Vettel. He outperformed sometimes Vettel on some occasions, in fact, in all honesty. For instance, USA, Italy. So yeah, I just think Raikkonen, he will have a good season, but I don't think many people will remember it because he's that far down the grid in a Sauber. But at the same time, he will always be respected in Formula One. It's a bit like Alonso. But I wish, in a way, Kimi Raikkonen retired. Not because I don't like him, because I feel Raikkonen's got nothing now more to achieve. He's been at Ferrari twice. He's won races multiple times now. He's the most successful Finnish driver in terms of race wins. He's also a world champion. What more is there to achieve for Kimi? I don't know. I would prefer to see him go out on a high rather than now a low, if that makes sense. Because, yeah, Raikkonen's been at the top. He's earned his way to the top. But it's Raikkonen's choice, I guess. Maybe Raikkonen does feel he's got something more to achieve in Formula One. I don't know what that is. I guess he could try and get the most races completed for any driver. Most race laps completed. Are these achievements he wants? Maybe. I have no idea. If they are, I wish him best of luck in that achievement because, I presume it won't be easy. Right, next is Robert Kubica. And yeah, Robert Kubica I've rated in 15th. And yeah, I guess surprisingly high for a first season back in Formula One after so many years. But no, I honestly think he will do well. I think he'll do better some of the lower guys, actually. I think there are lower drivers behind him that will do worse. I don't think he'll have an outstanding season. I don't think he'll have a poor season, but yeah, I just think, he will do good. I don't know how well. I think, though, this is where you can start disagreeing with me, if you know what I mean, because you could disagree with me on all of them if you really want, but I honestly think Kubica will have one of them seasons. A good season, will score points, undoubtedly. I don't question that. But I don't think he'll be able to perform maybe at the level he used to be. And I think 15th is realistic and respectable. I don't think it's disrespectful to put him that low down. Because, yeah, he's 32 or 33 now. He's the same age as Hamilton. He's got a broken left arm or right arm or whatever. And yeah, he's had 5 or 4 years out of Formula One due to medical condition. And he is effectively the first disabled driver in Formula One. So yeah, I just think Kubica he'll enjoy his time in F1, I hope. But yeah, I just don't think he'll be as good. But I think he will be better than some other drivers on this list. And one of them drivers on this list has to be Danny Kvyat. And Danny Kvyat, obviously, in 2017 got dropped from Red Bull Toro Rosso Honda, or from Red Bull Toro Rosso Renault at the time. And yeah, got dropped, obviously. And to be now back in Formula One, I think he will have a good season. I don't think he'll have a brilliant season, a season to remember. And yeah, that's why I think he'll be the 16th at the end of the season. I just don't think he'll be able to maybe do as great. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong in either direction with this driver and with Kvyat. I know he's a good driver, but I just feel like, a bit like, again, he's not coming in to have a second proper attempt at his career. I just feel he's coming in actually to fill a shoe, or to fill a seat, should I say. I just don't think he's actually coming in to have a proper decent attempt. And yeah, I've put him in that position because I think by the end of the season, I would not be surprised if he gets dropped again. Yeah. I did say also earlier on in the season, last year, I think he could be a contender for Ferrari if he stuck with it. And he didn't. That's end of. And now I think he's gone. I think it'll either be a make or break season for Kvyat. If he does well, I think actually, you know what, maybe there's an opportunity. But if he does bad, I think that is the last season, the last time we're seeing Danny Kvyat in Formula 1. And it's sad to say, he's very, very young. He's a very, very talented driver. I have no doubts about that. And yeah, but Formula 1 is a cutthroat business, unfortunately. Personally, I think he was wrongly dismissed from Red Bull. He was wrongly dismissed from Toro Rosso in the first going outs. But, as I say, Formula 1 is a cutthroat business. If you don't take your opportunity whilst they're there, then guess what? Bye-bye. Right. Next, I've put in 17th, George Russell. And yeah, George Russell, 17th. Reason why I put him there, I don't doubt his ability once again. But in a way, it's the car. And it's basically his inexperience maybe in Formula 1. I think this is the thing. Being an inexperienced driver, you have to give a bit of slack. I would not expect George Russell to beat Kubica. And Kubica, even though he's had 5 years out of Formula 1, he's a very still experienced driver. So on paper, I think you've got to put Kubica higher. And you've got to have higher expectations for Robert Kubica. Whereas for George Russell, I think we should give him a bit of slack. It's his first season in Formula 1. He's coming into a team that barely managed to get points last season. So, yeah, that's why I've rated him, or given him 17th position in the Drivers' Championship next year. I just think, overall, as a driver, I just don't think he will be as competitive, maybe, as what some other drivers will be. And in 18th, Lance Stroll. And yeah, Lance Stroll, in a way, I wish him to have a bad season. And in a way, I believe he will have a bad season. And if you don't know much about Lance Stroll's been with Williams for, since the start of his career. He's been a pay driver. Okay? Now, I don't doubt Lance Stroll's ability. Don't get me wrong. I think he deserved his way into Formula 1. But the thing is about Lance Stroll, he is a paid driver. Or he is paying for his seat in Formula 1, more or less. And he is such a spoilt kid. His father's a billionaire. I'm not saying his father doesn't deserve to be that. No. But come on. My mother, not been funny. Right. I'm not saying I don't deserve what I have or anything about that. But my mother is, much less wealthier. I'm much less wealthier than Lance Stroll. But the thing is about Lance Stroll is, just because you're rich doesn't mean you have the rights to drive a Formula 1 car. I think, right, Lewis Hamilton said this last season. In theory, there should be 20 of the best drivers, however, this ain't the case. And same with Vettel, he said the exact same. And I think it was in Monaco GP he said this. Formula 1 should be 20 of the best drivers. However, this ain't always the case. And when he said this comment, he's actually referring to people like Lance Stroll, okay? He's referring to people like Sergei Sorokin, because undoubtedly these aren't the 20 best drivers. Sergei Sorokin, I'm in a bit of halfway house right now. I actually don't think he's actually that bad based on his season in Formula 1, because I actually beat Lance Stroll. I'm not saying something. But yeah, I just think Lance Stroll doesn't deserve to have a good season. He's been brought into Formula 1. And you know what? Havagatsuy's been brought into Formula 1 to replace into that Force India team. You've guessed it, Esteban Ocon. And I'm sorry, no matter whether you love him or hate him, I hope we can all agree, Esteban Ocon is far greater than Lance Stroll. And it's a shambles, really. And in a way, like, I never wish anyone to have a bad season, but I'm sorry to say here, okay, I just think it's wrong of Lance Stroll to get this seat that another driver deserves rightfully, and I think, yeah, basically Lance Stroll deserves to be in that team. Ocon deserves to be in that team, I meant. Yeah, I just think it's wrong that he's now off to a different team and he will not be participating next year. Esteban Ocon, one of probably Formula 1's greatest future drivers of a generation, up there with Max Verstappen and any other great drivers. I'd say he's up there with Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, who else is he up there with? Ocon, Hamilton maybe, if you look at it from a different point of view. Sainz as a future generation driver. He is certainly, in my eyes, a driver that is for the future. And in my eyes, yeah, you know, basically, he's, what you call it, I feel like, personally, in a way, we've been let down by Force India, in some sense. Right, in 19th place, I have put, okay, and this is Giovinazzi. And Giovinazzi, yeah, Giovinazzi, I'm not too sure. Personally, I haven't followed him much. He's had a year out of Formula 1. He hasn't done much in his year out of Formula 1. I'm just not sure which way to go on him. He could be great, he could be terrible. Based on that, I've given him a bit of slack, and I'm going to say he's going to have a okay season. I don't think he'll be a season to remember, but I think he'll do okay. But yeah, I just don't think he'll have a season that we can rightfully say, you know what, yes, this is the next future, if you know what I mean. And yeah, you know, based on that, that's why I've put him into this position. I just think, you know, he will not deliver that great of a season. And yeah, you know, I just think Giovinazzi will maybe score 1 or 2 points, but that's it. And finally, I've selected Albion. New Toro Rosso driver for next year. He could have had an opportunity of what I heard earlier on in his career. But yeah, in my eyes, personally, I just think, I don't know much about Albion, Alexander Albion. I think he might do okay. I'm just not sure. So that's why I've put him dead last. He's the least that I know about. So yeah. And yeah. So yeah, if you guys have got maybe any drivers that you believe that will be great in 2019, please let me know. Now, we're going to move on very quickly, and we're going to do the top 10 or top 5. Actually, yeah, we'll do the top 5 teams. Or should we leave that to another video? We'll leave that to another video. So yeah, that's all then for today, guys. Thank you very much. come back for the top 10 teams championship position. Who will be, the top 10? Well, what order will the top 10 be? I guess we've only got 10. We can't really do a top 10. We'll have to call it the 10 best teams in Formula 1. But yeah, that's it then, all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Please tell me who you think your top 10 will be, or your top 5, top 3, or top 20. If you want to go for the top 20, show me who your top 20 drivers will be. And that's mine, really. So, yeah, first will be Vettel, Hamilton second, third Bottas, fourth Leclerc, fifth Ricciardo, fifth, seventh Hulkenberg, eighth sixth Hulkenberg, seventh Grosjean, eighth Sainz, ninth Gasly, 10th Verstappen, Norris in 11th, 12th Magnussen, 13th Perez, 14th Raikkonen, 15th Kubica, 16th Kvyat, 17th Russell, 18th Lance Stroll, 19th Giovinazzi, and in 20th, I believe we will have Alexander Albon. But who will be my top 10 constructors or teams? Obviously, this is not confirmed. Do remember, my top 20 drivers are not confirmed. The championship hasn't even started yet. But, of course, it eventually will do on the 17th of September. So, yeah, from that moment on, we will be starting to update this. And we'll see by the end of it whether I am right or wrong with my predictions. Can I get all 20 right? That is the question. No, I'm just joking. I don't think all 20 will be right. I think the aim has to be to get at least... I'm going to say 10. I want to get 10. So that's 50% right. If we can get 10 correct, then you know what? We've done a pretty good job in predicting the field. The team's championship, I think, is a bit more easier to predict, if that makes sense. But, yeah, I want to get 10 correct. If we can get 10, good job. So, thank you once again for watching. Have a good evening. Have a good night. See you all soon.